Most businesses have really seen a major shift since the beginning of this decade, and that has caused a tremendous amount of change on the intersection between HR and information technology. That's what we're going to focus on today. I'm Lisa Ellen Smith, and this is Focus on Business.
SBAM has been in partnership with Consumers Energy and DTE Energy for several years. We work to provide small business owners with enhanced energy services through our SMB Energy Solutions program. Small businesses have access to special services that can help you become more energy efficient. And the good news is that you don't have to do it alone. SBAM Energy Solutions provides you with personalized assistance as you navigate the ins and outs of energy management. SBAM's Energy Advocate can provide you with a free customized assessment. Assessments offer a glimpse into how your business can become more energy efficient, whether it's a small step like swapping out light bulbs or a more comprehensive project such as upgrading an HVAC system. No project is too big or small. Our team knows the latest incentives and rebates you will qualify for and the best financing options available. We have a network of contractors we can rely on to help you complete your projects. SBAM members have recognized substantial savings on their energy bills. Most projects pay for themselves multiple times over. Request your free assessment at sbam.org/energy. Our team will schedule a time to meet with you and can conduct a site visit or do a virtual walkthrough. Thank you.
Today we have on the show Chad Paulman, New Wave Technology Partners, and Mike Burns from the American Society of Employers. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. Our topic today is the intersection of HR and information technology. And the reason that we're talking about this today is because almost every business out there has really made a major shift since the beginning of 2020. And this has caused implications in both HR and IT. And oftentimes these two have an intersection. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Mike, you are from American Society of Employers. Is technology changing in what HR professionals do?
Oh, most certainly. We've been having HRIS systems evolving, I think, for now 20 plus years. They're even to the point where, small and, very small employers can benefit from such systems. In those operations, they may be actually using their payroll providers' HRIS system that comes with the package that they purchase from them. But what is happening is these systems are, they just keep evolving, and HR professionals and the direction they're evolving in, and I don't want to say they're not becoming really intelligent, but they're taking on more and more of what they call in the HR field as transactional activity, the record keeping, the changes to benefits, and on and on and on. And this is where a lot of the HR professionals that I grew up with, this is disturbing in a way. Is that, well, where's my job going? Because it was so much transactional activity that made up the human resource professional's day. Now, with that going away, the HR professional, and mind you, that was kind of a paradox, because for decades they've also been lamenting the fact that they can't get a seat at the business table. They're too busy. They're pigeonholed into the personnel office and on and on, and they haven't found a way to do that. Well, what the HRIS systems are doing today, because they're evolving so well, is freeing up that HR professional to go into the more strategic HR activity, which of course leads to that seat at the business table.
Oh, that's an interesting perspective. Can you just, for the audience, define HRIS?
Human Resource Information System, and I'm probably being a little liberal with that term. It encompasses, in my mind, any type of automated system out there that an employer can use to keep up on their personnel activities and tasks and so forth.
Can you just, in case there's a bunch of business owners watching, tell us like what are the top name brands on HRIS?
Oh, geez. I mean, you got SAP. You've got, you caught me there. The
That's
ones that
okay.
I've been lately talking to, as I mentioned earlier, smaller employers on is the platforms with ADP and Paychecks. Now they're payrolling companies, but they've developed some pretty sophisticated HRIS components to them. Not to put Chad on the spot. Can you think of, did anyone, the big guys jump on them? I know if I heard the name, it'd come to me, but
you actually
those were the three.
You named the ones I would have named as well there, Mike.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I really didn't, until we were doing the show, didn't know what HRIS was. And so, I mean, I'm a business owner. I'm not like all that into HR, which again, I did not start a business so I could learn all about HR software. And that's why this show is kind of important, because now I can just, okay, now I've got some brand names to go after there. Not that we're selling anything. We don't have any stake in any of that or anything, but that's an interesting idea. Now, Chad, you are in the information technology space. So you must be working with these different kinds of systems in the total tech stack, the technology stack. What is it that employees on the HR side want from IT?
Yes, that's a great question, Lisa. COVID has really drastically accelerated the work from anywhere or remote working. I like to call it work from anywhere because a lot of people refer to work from home, but it really has become a work from anywhere scenario. And what we are finding now, as we are now, a year and a half into COVID, I'll say, is that employers, and I'm not isolated in this. I had about a third of my staff worked from home pre-COVID, and now, with the exception of a handful of people, and we've got multiple offices around the state, with the exception of a few people, most of my staff, including myself, are working from home. And the challenge that employers are dealing with, and employees, this is really a two-way conversation, is, okay, do we return to work? We've shown that we can work remote in many cases, including my own business, show that we can work remote, have better efficiency, have, all of the metrics that we measure ourselves on are up. So that begs the question, is working in the office better? Then we start looking at the things that maybe are a little more subjective, such as culture, relationships. And those things, we could debate about, maybe on another show, Lisa, about how those are impacted. But the question that you ask, though, that I keep hearing the most today, where we're at currently with return to work, is the employees are asking, well, do we have to? We're showing that we don't need to physically be in the office to get our work done.
I was in the camp. I was so firmly in the corporate camp when I came to the creative world, right? I came from a big media corporation, and I was all about, nope, we're not doing casual Friday. You wear a suit to work. That's the way it works. What if a client wanders in, right? So the whole people working outside of the office, how do I even know what they're doing? Like, well, how's that going to work? I could not fathom it. And then 2020 came, and we were actually already working remotely with our clients all the time on Zoom. Everybody had a personal Zoom account. We had a policy, video first. If you're going to be on Zoom, you got to have your video on. I mean, so those things were already in place. It really was just, now my employees are also not in my office. But probably the most uncomfortable thing that I had to reckon with was, how do I know what they're doing? Do you get that from employers?
We do, and I think I look at that as an evolution of thought, and I say that because if you're an employer who the employees are getting the work done, and you have ways to measure that the work is getting done, I ask the question: do you care when they do it and where they do it from? Now, there are of course things that are time sensitive. If I have to have maybe a call center or a customer service desk staffed from a specific time, then that human needs to be available during those times. But if I have work that needs to get done, say within a week's period or a month time frame, I ask the question, maybe provoke some thought of, do you care as the employer when or where that work gets done, if it gets done on time, on budget, or maybe even ahead of time. And employees are asking for that. Employees are asking for, I'm hearing more and more, the ask to work from anywhere. So that's probably the question. Does that answer your question, Lisa?
Yeah, it does. I think the question is both on the employee side, but also on the employer side. How does the employer know? Are there, I mean, Mike, are employers saying, what can I do to make sure that people are?
If you don't mind, I have a technical answer for that.
Let's go.
I am asked, not as much anymore, but as we were all going into our scenario a year and a half ago, I was asked the question a lot. Are there tools, are there technologies out there that allow me to kind of keep an eye on what my employees are doing? And I'm not a big brother type of person. I actually really, it might seem interesting. I'm in IT. I own an IT company, and I have every tool that you can imagine. And I don't even monitor my kids, from the standpoint of to the ability that you could. So I answer that question when I'm asked, can I watch everything? Technically, yes. You can screen record, you can monitor. I can give you a report of every second that they've spent on their computer, where they went on the internet, what applications were being used. I can literally do live screen record the entire time that your employee is on there. But then I ask the question, do you really want that? Is that the type of culture that you want? And this is purely a personal answer to your question, Lisa. And I'm sure there's an HR component to that as well, Mike.
I would go so far as saying that, the monitoring of workers has been controversial for years. How close do you want to get to that? But you do have employee relations concerns. As long as they're on their own equipment, or I should say the equipment of the employer, all bets are off in terms of legal issues there. You basically agree by virtue of policy that you're gonna, you can be monitored and whatever. But how does that make your employee feel when they think that they're being watched, and they probably grow into a little paranoia there? Employers, and one of the things that I think employers, got to keep an eye on is their, the trust that the employees may have. This is all built into, I think, what Chad said earlier, the culture of the organization. You could be exacerbating by monitoring a culture that's kind of got its own set of problems or issues, to put it politely. And then you could be ruining a positive culture if are using monitoring when employees feel trusted and engaged and so forth. So employers have to weigh the benefits they might get from monitoring, and there's a lot of ways to monitor workers at home and even in their offices, but mainly at home. But do they really want to? And what message will the employees get from that?
Exactly.
Yeah, Chad, you mentioned something interesting, and that is if you don't care when the work gets done or where the work gets done. So I guess the question is for both of you, really. In my business, I request that employees be in their chairs during business hours, because we have clients who are going to be emailing and communicating at those times, and it's just makes sense. Is that not a normal kind of request from employers?
I'll answer the question, because I maybe made that statement. That's very normal what you're saying, Lisa. Mm-hmm. What we're finding is there's more and more jobs that can be done that don't have the requirement of being in a desk at a specific time. And for those jobs, the employees are saying, or employers and employees are saying, well, let's look at flexible schedules. It opens up time zone opportunities. If you can hire somebody in a different time zone and the work gets done, maybe the deadline is it needs to be done by the end of the week. Do you care if it's being worked on, at 7, 8 o'clock at night or early in the morning, as long as it's getting done? The scenario you just talked about is absolutely, I think, for the foreseeable future, going to be a reality that we have, whether it's customer service, or in the scenario you talked about where your customers are contacting you and somebody needs to be available to answer the phone or answer an email or chat during those specified business open hours. Then I think it's absolutely appropriate that there's a requirement that they're working. Maybe they don't need to be at a desk in an office, though. More and more businesses are moving that job function that you're talking about to a remote worker.
Yeah, coffee shops are awfully busy right now.
Yeah.
Lots going on there. Mike, what could be the downside of technology's influence on employment and the HR people that have to oversee that workforce?
Well, we've talked about the risk associated with employee monitoring of work and being, big brother, if you will. I think there's a big concern these days, particularly remotely, on the security around data and information within the companies and how the employees use it. ASE runs a background checking service. We used to have satellite offices, I'll put it that way, but it was really in a room within the employee's home. Well, we were dealing with dates of birth, social security, and numbers and on to do these checks. And we finally had to, and this for the sake of me sleeping at night, just bring it in and lock it down. That function drove that. So security, privacy, confidentiality of information. And then on the other side of the coin, you've got some people who are not as proficient with computers and the systems there. And I always say to my crew here when we're talking about technology or information systems, test it on me. I'm the lowest common denominator here. And I, but it's incumbent upon the employee to catch up and know how these systems work. And you start adding in mobile devices and everything else, and it kind of expands exponentially in terms of the, concerns, issues, and the reality of that. So those are some areas that I think employers, they may not be able to think through them because they are so broad, but they will have to deal with them in one way or the other as they get further and further into technology.
I know you have some words to say about that, Chad.
Yeah, I know we're probably running out of time because this could be almost a 2-hour conversation, but I'll sum it up by saying that security for a remote workforce should not be an afterthought. I always tell all of my clients and even friends that own businesses is that the very first thing you need to do when you're going to move a workforce out of the office, whether it's one person or the entire staff, is you need to really look at what devices are going to be used, what is the access. You need to really look at the entire mapping of how that remote workforce is set up and how security is set up. That is imperative. Especially with everything it's almost daily now a news story about a company that is having a security event. So there are a lot of things you can do to keep yourself out of the news.
And I am always surprised that many of those security events, and in fact, I think it might be over half, if I remember the research there, are pointed at small businesses.
Yeah,
Wow.
It's certainly if you think about the number of businesses as a whole, there's more small businesses than there are large businesses, and that's probably the biggest misnomer that I fight against on a daily basis. Is that I run into small business owners all the time who say, I don't have anything that the hackers want. I'm not a target, and I'm constantly preaching that yes, you are a target, and that you do need to take this stuff seriously. The thing that every small business should do if they're not doing it already is multi-factor authentication. I preach it, and there's so many events that could have been prevented if they just had that multi-factor authentication in place.
It's magic pixie dust for IT.
Yeah.
Multi-factor.
That's
the takeaway today.
I'd suggest one area of other security is just teaching your employees, look at what came through your email and don't just open everything, because that's where a lot of doors get mistakenly open. Just innocent, clicking on it as they do probably 100 times a day, and they hit that malware and
yeah.
That's
I think that's the key takeaway. And with that, we're going to have to close. Thank you so much, you guys, for being with me today.
Thank you.
This is Denise Policello with Focus on Legal. Happy employees make a thriving workplace, but one disgruntled employee can create a toxic work environment, morale problems, and once they take those problems online, your bottom line can suffer. So let's make sure that doesn't happen to you. The first thing you really need to do is prevent this from happening in the first place, because it's very, very difficult to undisgruntle an employee. So what you need to do is be very clear and communicate with your employees from the minute they start working with you what their rights and responsibilities are. They do not have free speech rights in the workplace. And once they start disparaging you to the public, they really do need to be terminated. So it's very important to keep those lines of communication open from the beginning and make sure that they understand that they need to come to you with their issues and not to their coworkers and not to their Facebook group. And then the second thing you need to do is act quickly and decisively. This is not the kind of thing you can let languish. One disgruntled employee can quickly become 10, and then you have PR nightmare, and you want to get in front of this as soon as possible. And frankly, if you don't get in front of this as soon as possible, it will quickly get out of hand and they will need to be terminated. So have a sit down with them, make sure they understand their responsibilities for bringing their grievances to you and nowhere else. And you may need to terminate. And honestly, this is the point where I'm almost always counseling my clients to terminate. So we want to prevent that. And then the third thing is to, kill them with kindness, as we say. You do not want to engage with your employees on social media, whether they're current employees or former employees. This will backfire on you. It will be a PR disaster. So do the happy thing and flood your social media with positives, and remember to always consult a qualified business attorney before you're taking any adverse employment action.
Focus on Law, brought to you by Pochella and Associates, PLLC.
I'm Katie Crick, business insurance producer from Cedar River Insurance Agency in mid-Michigan. I receive two questions quite often. One, what does it mean to be an independent insurance agent? And two, what is the best company to buy insurance from? Well, these answers are actually connected. The company that I recommend for a client depends completely on the client. Every insurance company, also called a carrier, has a different appetite, or has determined the type of client and risk that they want to attract and build the most competitive policies for. This means that company X might be the perfect fit for one customer, but for the next customer that I speak with, who has a different type of business, a different carrier makes a lot more sense. There is no one best insurance company. There's only the best insurance company for you. Also, carrier appetites can change, and your business can change too. You might add products or services, change locations, add employees, or something else. And what was once a great fit might not stay that way. This is the advantage of working with an independent agent. Independent agents can connect you with insurance policies from multiple different companies. Instead of working exclusively with one company, we are appointed with many. We should be neutral, shopping on your behalf and recommending the company that fits your needs best. I've never met a business owner who enjoys spending more money than they need to on insurance, especially if it's on coverage that isn't right for them. Working with an independent agent means that your insurance portfolio can more smoothly evolve alongside your business, saving you time, money, and ensuring your peace of mind.
Focus on Insurance, brought to you by Cedar River Insurance.
I'm attorney Richard Craig Krause. Today's business world is in a state of upheaval. In fact, some refer to it as a shakeout. And during that time, a great number of businesses either close or they're put up for sale because the owners simply want to separate and allow that business to go forward on its own. And when there's a buyer and a seller that meet for that purpose, it's necessary that their deal be structured properly because there are very specific legal, financial, and of course tax implications and consequences on virtually every feature that's involved in that business. For instance, let's start with the most basic question. What is it that's being sold? Is it the assets of the business? Or Is it the entity itself that holds the assets? In other words, if it's a corporation, is it the stock that's being sold, or is it the assets that's held by the corporation? If it's an LLC, the same question still applies. Is it the entity? Is it the membership in the entity that's being sold, or is it the assets? Now, the real question is, what's most beneficial for you? And when you get past that question, you get involved with so many others. Like, how is the purchase price going to be determined? And how is it going to get allocated amongst the assets or the ownership interests involved? When and where is the purchase price going to be paid or financed? And will the buyer or the seller assume any of the business liabilities? Well, it's obvious that every one of those issues have possible significant legal, financial, and tax consequences. It also means that if those issues are not successfully addressed, you remain at risk in later discovering that your deal actually burdens you with unnecessary and even horrible continuing legal, financial, and tax responsibilities. So when you're involved in a transaction, it's necessary to work your way through it in a knowledgeable and experienced way. And even though you don't have that experience and knowledge necessarily, you already have that gut level feeling that you know that this needs to be done. Now, when do you do it? You do it at the first available opportunity. You do it when the dialogue between the parties first starts. And if you haven't done that already, you do it as soon as you possibly can and bring these things into action so that you know that you can optimize what you need, not just from a tax, not just from a legal, and not just from a financial point of view, but a total point of view, including your peace of mind. This is how you appropriately exit from a business if you're a seller, and how you appropriately enter into the business if you're a buyer. And these are key. Thank you. I'm attorney Richard Craig Krause. That's Krause with an E.
Focus on Tax, brought to you by Krause, Bangs and Associates PC.
Build a better marketing strategy with Inverve Marketing. The way we buy has changed. It's time to dream bigger. With digital marketing, you can build your business faster, measure and evaluate results. Let us help you find your marketing superpowers with Inbound Marketing, driven by strategy with inspired creativity. Why not put some verve in your brand? Market and grow better with Inverve Marketing.
The executive producers of Focus on Business are looking for your stories. Stories from owners of established businesses that have come through amazing adversity, bucked the odds, found the next big thing. If you have a story, we want to hear from you. Go to our website and maybe we'll invite you onto the show.